action figures. They're what we collect. But how do we get them? Well, we buy them. Now, where do we buy them from? A lot of people have asked me, where do you get your figures? And I always say here, there, and everywhere, because it's pretty much the answer. Say, for example, this figure, I actually ordered off of nerdzoic.com because he was running a sale. So, yeah, I get them here, there, and everywhere. So one interesting thing I've always wanted to discuss is some figures that I've gotten from interesting places, but I didn't really know how to, make this a video. So Patreon clone commander Jcc2224 requested I do a video talking about some of my most interesting finds, and I was kind of left to interpret this on my own, and I kind of decided I want to show figures that I found. You go to these places to find figures, but these aren't really the figures you expect to find in those kind of places. So obviously, you go to an online toy store like nerdzoic.com and you find something. It's not sponsored, by the way. I just kind of want to give him a shout because he's a fellow YouTuber and I actually bought this from him. But yeah, you go to Big Bad Toy Store, Amazon, eBay, wherever. You just buy figures, but sometimes you find things you don't really expect, or you get things in ways you weren't expecting either. So setting him off to the side, because he's not super relevant to this video, let's start off with one that I've probably talked my ear off about all of the time. McFarlane Spider-Man. I found this guy at the flea market for $6.50, pretty much. I found him very cheap. However, I feel like this is actually a very noteworthy addition, because not only is this the only rare Spider-Man that I found at the flea markets, at the very same flea market, I think about a year or so after that, I found Spider-Hulk, and at a flea market just across the street, just a couple weeks ago, I found the Toy Biz Superposable Spider-Man from Spider-Man 2. So yeah, I really wanted to put this on the list because it's very interesting. Not only have I found not one, but 3 very rare Spider-Man figures at the flea markets. This one, it's a cool Spidey. This superposable one, it's a cool Spider-Man, but it's kind of hard to pose. So yeah, you may be thinking oh, why'd you put this? Because I found them really cheap. The people who had them didn't know what they had. I would say the combined cost for all of these for me was under $40. For all 3 of these Spider-Men that are probably, if you combine the value, worth somewhere around $300. It's kind of crazy. I'm going to put this on because the flea markets are one place where I have found a lot of things that I was never expecting to find. And definitely the most prominent examples are these 3 Spider-Man figures. I am very shocked that I found these at the flea market. These 2 were at Treasure Isles, and this one was at Trader's World. If you live in Cincinnati, you probably know those flea markets. Very cool places. Some are pretty Funko Pop heavy. That's not really the kind of shops I look for, and some charge pretty crazy prices for stuff. But, hey, when you find stuff really cool and really cheap, that's a pretty big surprise. So let's set these guys off to the side. So I'm sure other countries have stores like this, but in America we have stores called Bargain Hunt, TJ Maxx. Basically, they're the kind of places that get budget items or things you wouldn't really expect, like Overstock. I went into a Bargain Hunt once, and I found SH Figuarts Shinken Red. The package was very beat up. It was very, very beat up. But yeah, I found an SH Figuarts figure for $7 in a Bargain Hunt store. Man, this was years and years ago. And I was very, very surprised. So another interesting acquisition was going into a place like that where most of the stuff you see, it's oh, it's a Star Wars vehicle. Yeah, the box is open. What's inside? Oh, it's some Fisher-Price thing. Someone swapped it. Oh, here's a Lego set. Oh, it's very clearly been opened and probably missing half the stuff. Or it's just pebbles inside. One of those places had a complete in-box Shinken Red or a Samurai Red Ranger for only $8. And I was actually kind of familiar with this Ranger because this Power Rangers was airing at a similar time when I was watching some other shows. I don't even remember what shows. So I actually caught a couple episodes, and I thought it was kind of neat. This guy actually had an interesting story at one point where he was like doubting his ability as a leader. I didn't know Power Rangers had stories like that. No, I will not watch Power Rangers. But yeah, it was pretty cool to get a figure like this. I haven't really found much too interesting at Bargain Hunt since then. I did find the Universal Studios Deluxe Class Optimus Prime in the box for like $10 a little bit ago, but I didn't buy it because I didn't need it. So yeah, it's very interesting. You also find things like massive $150 Transformers for only $40 at places like this. Ollie's is another store that oftentimes has stuff similar to this. But you don't really expect to find things as crazy as an SH Figure Art. Kind of odd. So next up, I mentioned eBay a little earlier, and I figured I'd actually bring up a mistake that happened with a seller that actually ended up being a pretty interesting way I acquired a figure I really wanted. So a few years ago, I was going through and collecting the Mobile Suit in Action Battle Scarred figures for G Gundam, because I love G Gundam, and there's not a very complete, comprehensive 1144 collection that is good, so I decided to get the old MSIAs, and particularly the Battle Scarred ones, because I just love the look of all the damage. I ordered Dragon Gundam here on eBay. It was about $20, which I thought was a pretty good deal. And when I got it in the mail, I got Bolt Gundam instead, and I was very confused. I'm like, I didn't order Bolt Gundam, I ordered Dragon Gundam. But then I was like, hey, let's message the seller and say, hey, so I accidentally got this Bolt Gundam on accident when I ordered Dragon Gundam, but if you still have Dragon Gundam, can I still buy this Bolt Gundam off of you and still get my Dragon Gundam? So I actually ended up paying him again, the same price, to get Dragon Gundam again, and I ended up with Bolt Gundam. So eBay's a pretty straightforward place when it comes to finding stuff. Sometimes you'll see a listing that's very surprising, someone doesn't know what they have. One of those interesting things for me was an old HGUC1144 domestic release of Char Zaku that reused the 08th MS team mold. Someone mislabeled it as the Origin Zaku, and I got it really cheap under the radar. So you can find really cool stuff on eBay, but I thought this was an interesting story of how I ordered something and got something else on accident, but it was still something I wanted, and I was able to get them both. That worked out. Next up, this story comes as no surprise to some people who followed my channel for a while. I found a lot of good stuff at the thrift store. The thrift store is a place where I have been very pleasantly surprised by many of the things I've found. I found complete Star Wars action figures, I found some clone troopers, I found tons of Transformers, I found some vehicles, I found a lot of cool stuff. But probably my favorite still to this day is this animated deluxe Rodimus. He didn't come with his weapon, don't really care, it's not a part of the vehicle, I can live without it. However, the fact that I got this guy in like a $2 thrift store bag, I find it so interesting that you can walk into a thrift store sometimes and find something super cool. There's other thrift stores that aren't as good. I've noticed Goodwill as of late has been not good because I feel like whenever they get anything that's halfway decent, they throw it up online and auction it off there instead of putting things in their stores, which is kind of a shame because I used to find some decent stuff at Goodwill. Nowadays, I don't even find a lot of decent stuff at my thrift store. I'm kind of worried that someone works at the thrift store and they know what's coming in and they're like, oh, I'll buy this for, $2 from the thrift store and I'll sell it on eBay or something. Kind of worried there's an inside person because I don't really find much there anymore. Oh well, I can at least enjoy what I did find back in the day. And last and definitely not least is not this guy, because I got this guy from a good friend, Star Wars fan Tommy, over in Belgium. One interesting way to get figures is to have friends and, do trades or have sales between friends, and hey, it's pretty cool. However, it's not this particular figure that I acquired that's very interesting, even though I did want to shout out Star Wars fan Tommy because he was the reason I had this. I actually, if you haven't checked out my Instagram, acquired another one of this figure. So this one is a huge thanks to you, the viewers, the people that have sent in things in the P.O. box. Since then, I have acquired a massive tub of fodder action figures. Figures missing heads, hands, arms, you name it. Painted figures, broken figures. I have a huge tub. And I was just looking through it one day, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've got I've got another helmet to one of these that someone sent me. I'm so sorry, I don't remember who sent me the pieces. I would love to go back and look, but I have over 100 episodes of P.O. Box unboxing, and I unfortunately don't have the time to look. Believe me, I really appreciate it. If you know who you are, thank you very much. So I remember I remembered I had this helmet, and I was thinking, oh, I might use it for like a custom or something. But then I was like, wait, here's a body. Here's the body with the shoulders and everything. It does have a missing finger, but I wasn't too worried about that. And I'm like, let me see if I can, oh, there's a head. So I was able, in my fodder bin, some stuff that I've probably had laying around for months, if not, a year or two, I was able to piece together, and yes, I display him with his arms crossed because he's got a missing finger. Anyways, I was able to acquire another one of this clone pilot. And if you're wondering, this is the clone pilot from the Imperial Pilot Legacy Evolution set. He's technically not an Imperial pilot, that's just what the name of the set was. He's like a concept art, like gunship pilot, I think. I think he's either a gunship or viewing pilot. Regardless, he's just a cool-looking clone pilot. And I think it's so awesome that I have two of this guy now. I just find it so amazing that I acquired a figure from stuff I already had. And I was just able to piece it together, and boom, there is a full, proper figure. That is shocking to me. So, there we go, guys. I wanted to make a video showing off... oh, that fell. That's... okay. So there we go. I wanted to make a video showing off how I acquired some things in some pretty interesting ways. When Jcc2224 brought this idea up to me, I was kind of thinking, how am I going to do this? I think it was initially like a top 10, but I couldn't think of 10. I really couldn't. I struggled. Because a lot of the things I get, I should probably reiterate this because a lot of people still ask me where I get my stuff. A lot of the new stuff I get, like brand new, I get from pre-orders. The places I pre-order the most, Amazon, because they often fluctuate prices and they give you the lowest price, and I'm not too worried about box conditions, so if I get it cheap and fast, I'll go with Amazon. If it's something larger, more expensive, I usually go BBTS. Big Bad Toy Store is a pretty great place that I go to. Not sponsored, by the way. I just like sharing where I get things. I do every once in a while order from other stores, such as Nerdzoic. That was actually my first order off of Nerdzoic. I really did like the service. It was very nicely packed. Yeah, there's a lot of other places I order new stuff. When it comes to old stuff, I go on eBay, local collector stores. I wouldn't really say that's an interesting way to get stuff because you walk into a toy store that literally says the toy department on it. You're going to find some toys. The toy department's the one I go to the most here in Cincinnati, but I also do have to shout out the House of Plastic, another super awesome toy store in Cincinnati. So toy stores are where I get actually a lot of my older figures. I frequent those. I probably go at least a few times a month, especially if I have money. If I don't have money, I try to avoid those places because I usually spend a lot there. It's eBay, those places. Every once in a while, I just stumble across it. My brother, he does a lot of toy dealings too, so sometimes he finds something that I really want, and I'm like, heck yeah, let's go. I don't really look on Facebook personally. My brother does, and he's found me a couple things. There's a lot of Facebook outlets, Instagram, this, that, and the other. Again, my brother's found me a lot of cool stuff through that. In some ways, he's kind of my toy broker. It's kind of funny. But normally, I stick with like the local collector stores, eBay, and I do haunt places like flea markets, thrift stores, all that. I don't really haunt them as much. I only go to the flea market about once a year. So, there we go, guys. Some interesting ways I've acquired figures and some interesting places you wouldn't really expect to look for figures. Heck, go through all of your, beat up figures and all that. Go through your storage bins. You might find something you didn't even know you had, totally forgot about. It's really interesting. One thing I like to appreciate in my collection is the stuff I already have. I love going through and just seeing, like, I have all this stuff. I love it. It's great. But, hey, getting new stuff is pretty fun too. Alrighty guys, thank you so much for watching. Special shout out to the patrons of Patreon, such as JMCGIN1453. There's an easier way to say your name. I'm sorry, I don't know it. Thank you so much. He's been a supporter for a while. And thank you all so much for your continued support. Every single one of you. I really appreciate it. Alrighty guys, there we go. Have a great one, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.